All right, so reviewing the forces that affect filtration in the glomerulus, we're going to use red for forces that are in the capillaries or inside the bloodstream, and then blue for forces that are in our Bowman's capsule. And then I've got purple for my pooling pressure, the osmotic pressure, and a green P for the hydrostatic pressure. Okay, so that's our pushing pressure. So now if I look in my glomerulus, I just drew a really simple capillary. Okay, so this would be part of our glomerulus, and then down here would be the Bowman's capsule. Okay, so just a very simplified diagram. Then we've got our hydrostatic pressure of the capillary and the osmotic pressure of the capillary. So if we want to add our hydrostatic pressure of the Bowman's capsule, we give it a green P. And then we're going to use, according to our key over here, a BC for the Bowman's capsule. Okay, so that would be our hydrostatic pressure of the Bowman's capsule. Compare that to the hydrostatic pressure of the capillary. The osmotic pressure inside the Bowman's capsule, so let's use a purple for the osmotic pressure, according to our key. And then we're going to use blue for the Bowman's capsule as our subscript. Okay, so we've got our four forces and their appropriate locations, and now we want to think about the overall direction that they're going to be pushing fluid or pulling fluid. So remember the big P's, the hydrostatic pressures. Okay, so green's for hydrostatic pressure. The big P's are for pushing. So the main force is going to be the hydrostatic pressure in the capillary. So I'm going to give it a big arrow because it's going to be a significant force. Now, this guy here, the hydrostatic pressure of the Bowman's capsule, is going to be a pushing force too. So he's pushing, but he's going to push in the opposite direction. And I'm just going to do a dotted line here to indicate his pushing pressure, because there's not really a whole lot of force behind it, because there's not really anything out here in the Bowman's capsule except for the temporary accumulation of filtrate. So there's a little bit of fluid in here, and that's what's causing that pushback that we identify as the hydrostatic pressure of the Bowman's capsule. Now for our purple, or osmotic pressures inside the capillary, we know that we've got all these plasma proteins in here acting like solutes, and solutes are going to pull, I'll do my arrow over here, they're going to pull water towards them because they act like solutes. And so I would say my osmotic pressure of the capillary is going to pull fluid back towards those plasma proteins. Likewise, my osmotic pressure of the Bowman's capsule, if there's solutes out here, they're going to pull liquid towards them. Okay, so if we want to pull things towards these solutes that are determining our osmotic pressure of the Bowman's capsule, we're going to see them helping filtration because those arrows are going the same way. So this guy would help filtration, and then of course that one is going to drive filtration. This one, the hydrostatic pressure of the Bowman's capsule, is going to oppose filtration, because notice he's going the opposite way. And then the osmotic pressure of the capillaries would also oppose our filtration process. Right? So both of the parts of the Bowman's capsule, the osmotic pressure and the hydrostatic pressure, are both going to have dotted arrows because their effects don't have as big of an influence on the movement of fluid as the effects of our hydrostatic pressure of the capillary and our osmotic pressure of the capillary. So with these forces, if we think about what causes them, this would be hydrostatic pressure of the Bowman's capsule. This would be the hydrostatic pressure of the capillary. Let's do our osmotic pressures. Oh, sorry. Wrong spot. Right, so that's osmotic pressure of the capillaries, osmotic pressure of the Bowman's capsule. So, osmotic pressure of our capillaries is going to be based on solutes, i.e. proteins, in the blood. There we go. That's a B. B for blood. Okay. And then osmotic pressure in the Bowman's capsule is going to be based on solute in the filtrate. And this would be before it goes down the proximal tubule. So it's just there temporarily in the Bowman's capsule in the filtrate after it's been pushed out into the Bowman's capsule, so out here. Then our hydrostatic pressures of the Bowman's capsule, this is going to be based on the fluid that's going to accumulate in the Bowman's capsule. And if everything's working the way it should, we really should not have much fluid accumulating, but this is just a little dotted arrow, so it's not a very big force if everything is working the way it should. And then our hydrostatic pressure of the capillary, we know that that's going to be based on blood pressure, but we can also see it dictated by our afferent arterial. And so remember that afferent arterial is what's delivering blood to the glomerulus. And so if we make the afferent arterial bigger and we vasodilate it, that's going to increase that hydrostatic pressure of the capillary and would eventually increase our glomerular filtration rate. Likewise, if we take our afferent arterial and we vasoconstrict it, and we limit the amount of blood that's going into the glomerulus, that's going to decrease our overall hydrostatic pressure of the capillary and decrease our glomerular filtration rate.